Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People story. I moved out to the countryside for some peace and quiet. After years of living in the bustling city, I was ready to embrace the slower pace of rural life. I purchased a nice little farmhouse on a large plot of land, complete with a classic red barn, lush green pastures, and my own private pond. It was my own slice of heaven away from the rat race of urban living. Little did I know, my tranquil haven was about to be turned upside down. Shortly after settling into my new home, I received a sternly worded letter from a group calling themselves the Oak Creek Homeowners Association. The letter informed me that I was being fined $5,000 for my failure to paint my barn, the approved beige color required by homeowner association regulations. Confused, I called the number listed at the bottom, assuming this was some sort of mistake. The woman who answered abruptly cut me off. "Sir, you are required to comply with all homeowner association rules as a member of this community." I tried explaining that I wasn't actually part of their association, but she refused to listen. The following week, I received another letter, the fine now raised to a whopping $50,000. Incensed, I drove down to the homeowner association office and demanded to speak with whoever was in charge. A man named Carl introduced himself as the homeowner association president. When I told Carl I wasn't a homeowner association member, he shrugged and said it didn't matter. As my property fell within their boundaries, I was required to follow their rules, no exceptions. His smug tone made my blood boil. Who did he think he was trying to exert this authority over my land? I made it abundantly clear I would not be coerced into joining their petty dictatorship. The beige paint demand was simply the first step. Soon they'd be telling me when I could mow my lawn or what flowers I could plant. I would fight this absurd abuse of power with everything I had. Things escalated quickly. Not even a month later, I was slammed with a ludicrous $1 million fine for my continued refusal to paint the barn. I wasted no time lawyering up and filing a lawsuit against the Homeowner Association for harassment and racketeering. In court, the headstrong Homeowner Association board argued they were well within their rights to impose fines on non-members. Their lawyer kept brandishing the extensive homeowner association bylaws like they were divine scripture. My lawyer, however, easily dismantled their baseless claims. He presented documentation of my property's deed, proving it was never incorporated into the homeowner association's jurisdiction. The judge agreed. The homeowner association had clearly overstepped their bounds by trying to impose fines on land that did not belong to them. The final ruling was sweet vindication. All fines against me were thrown out, and the homeowner association was barred from harassing me further. As an added bonus, I was awarded a hefty settlement amount for the distress their bullying caused. Carl nearly popped a vein yelling about how I'd regret challenging their authority. I simply waved goodbye wearing the biggest grin as he was dragged out of court. The story spread quickly around our little town, and I soon realized I wasn't the only victim of the homeowner association's corruption and greed. Inspired by my triumph, dozens of other non-members came forward with their own accounts of mistreatment. Even reluctant homeowner association members spoke out about excessive regulations over minuscule infractions. The bad publicity was the final nail in the coffin for Oak Creek Homeowner Association. Their membership dropped to nearly zero as people jumped ship. Without their outrageous fines and fees, the homeowner association quickly went bankrupt. Last I heard, Carl is struggling to find work, reputation destroyed thanks to his power-hungry antics as homeowner association president. As for me, I'm happily back to enjoying my picturesque farm, watching the sunrise with my coffee, not a care in the world. The barn remains brilliant red, standing as a proud symbol of one man's stand against bureaucratic bullies. So let this be a warning to all the mini-dictators out there. You can't go around imposing your will on folks who don't answer to you. Justice comes to those who fight for what's rightfully theirs. The next one is a pro-revenge story. Let's go back a few years. I was a combat engineer platoon sergeant. We had recently gotten a new company commander who thought his stuff didn't stink. My first interaction with him was when I got back from running an M240B range, where I was told he wanted to speak to all leadership immediately in the conference room. Well, it took 3 hours for him to arrive, and despite one SG calling many times, he insisted we stay. The entire meeting was him bragging about himself and saying that he was trying to get the company slotted for a deployment to the Middle East, as well as how excited he was to go. I spoke up and basically said he's a fool, but with more words, which ended the meeting and got me a stern talking to and thinly veiled threats. This captain had been in for 15 years and never once been deployed. That takes effort and a lot of figurative bootlicking. He only wanted to go now because he was up for major. It turned out Brigade had a mission and asked for volunteers. Captain Dipcrap volunteered me to go despite knowing I had gotten married a week earlier. I made it very clear I did not want to go to the higher-ups. I was told it was between myself and the captain. Well, a month out, my sister-in-law committed suicide immediately after she miscarried at 33 weeks. I found them both in the basement of their house. Well, Captain Dipcrap didn't care, no leave, and I was still to leave about a week after the funeral. Forget him. I walked in to talk to the command sergeant major and was immediately dropped from the deployment. But the captain was so far up the battalion commander's backside that nothing happened to him. After about 8 months later, Captain Dipcrap got his wish. Headquarters platoon and one other were slotted to deploy. Of course, because I had the most combat experience and most deployments in the platoon, he naturally decided that's why my platoon should go. Now, in order to deploy, you first have to go to a month-long field exercise where you are graded on performance. This generally applies to the higher levels of leadership. By this time, I was just annoyed. So I got my squad leaders together and improvised a few missions. First, everyone was to follow the CPT's instructions as literally as possible, no matter how dumb, and not to give any advice. This led us to get absolutely destroyed in training, which was glorious. Secondly, and most importantly, was the psychological aspect. So this dim-witted commander would go to bed nightly at 2100 no matter what. In the deserts of California, you can find all sorts of creepy crawlies to slip into a sleeping bag while sprinkling juice on his uniform. They'd also periodically hide some of his gear, or render his rifle inoperable. So for days, this went on. The poor guy slept very little because I ensured his tent was set over the top of a beehive. These bees hated any vibration and loved juice. The fool never realized why he was constantly getting stung. As we were to be falling under a new brigade, I had to go meet the higher-ups. And wouldn't you know it, the colonel we were set to fall under turned out to have been my first company commander, whom I got along great with. I pulled him aside and called up my squad leaders, where we basically told him Captain Dipcrap was going to get someone killed, pointed out his erratic behavior, and the overall poor performance. Needless to say, he was quickly relieved of command, career killer, and sent back to work in an office where he belonged. As for myself and my platoon, I still didn't want to go, but the new company commander was my old platoon leader for my second deployment, plus I couldn't let my guys go without me. Turned out it would be my last deployment as some injuries forced me out of the military, but everyone came back alive. The next one is a petty revenge story. I work in a theater, and it's not uncommon for audience members to cheekily try to move into seats they see are empty. On quieter days, it's not a huge issue. However, our unspoken policy is to wait until the interval, because we have a late seating policy, and those seats may have been sold to someone else. Or at the very least ask. On this day a while back, we were fairly full, not to the brim but enough, and I was supervising. My usher told me a woman moved a few rows forward and was argumentative when asked to move back, which she eventually did. Now, I don't have a problem with people moving along a few seats in the same row, because it's easy enough for them to shuffle back if they have happened to take up someone else's seat. But I draw the line at changing rows, especially when they have just been told no. Well, the lights go down, and the woman immediately moves back to the seat she was told she could not have yet, without her husband, mind you. And I go up to her and explain our policy, and she flat out refuses to move. She says in a very entitled and dismissive tone, "If someone comes, I will move." Right then. I was now feeling petty and righteous. During late seating, we wait for people for about 10 minutes, then let them in at the least disruptive time in the play. Alas, the seat the woman had taken hadn't been sold, but I had a plan, for I was on a mission. There was a couple set to be seated in the highest level, that is, the cheap seats, that I offered an upgrade to because I could see the woman had trouble walking. My usher escorted them in, and I was delighted to hear about the woman trying to tell my usher, a different one from the one she initially interacted with, that she will move when people come. My usher said point blank, "People are coming. You have to move." The woman's husband leaned across, grabbed her, and guided her back, looking quite embarrassed, I'm told. During the interval, I could see her surly, pouty face. Glorious. The irony is, had she asked nicely, I'd have been happy to help. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I'm currently a pizza delivery driver at a physical store, not for apps. We have a pretty basic dispatch system. Half of the touchscreen shows upcoming delivery orders, while the other half displays a list of drivers sorted by who's been checked in, not clocked in, the longest. It basically ensures deliveries are assigned fairly, so drivers cannot pick and choose the good orders whenever they please. Just yesterday, we had an issue that resulted in a rule change. What happened was, driver Andy was next in line to deliver. Andy delivered the order but forgot to check out said order through the dispatch system. As a result, Andy's name was #1 in driver order, while the delivery order was also unassigned and still in the store. This is pretty common, and there's no real penalty or punishment if you forget, just a silly mistake. When Andy returned, he checked out the delivery he just delivered and immediately checked in. This put his name at #3 in driver order. This bumped up the #2 driver, Brian, to the #1 spot, making the driver order Brian, #1, myself, #2, and Andy, #3. This is correct and how the ordering system would still be if Andy didn't forget to check out his delivery when he was supposed to. Again, normally this is inconsequential, but Brian realized he could try to screw things up in his favor. The orders up for delivery were unknown customer and known customer who tips very well. So when the time came for the unknown customer to get delivered to, Brian, who is #1 in order and is supposed to be there, refused to deliver it, saying, "I'm not next on the order. Andy was #1 for 20 minutes. I don't know how he's #3 now, but I'm not delivering next. It's Andy's turn." Cue a huge waste of time looking at camera footage and the boss not understanding anything. I would elaborate, but it's such a convoluted series of events that frustrates me just thinking about it again. It basically boils down to the boss apparently not having object permanence. The boss ultimately decides, "Andy, you are next. Take the order." This completely screws me over as I am now no longer lined up to take the big tipper delivery, and Brian is instead, the exact result Brian was hoping for by playing dumb about the dispatch system. Later that Friday, the boss would tell me, "From now on, we are going by what the dispatch system says. This will punish the driver that made the mistake like Andy instead of others," which is completely false. The only person who got punished by Andy's mistake was ME. Andy got to deliver 2 orders back to back, which the dispatch system is supposed to prevent. And Brian benefited from the driver order by getting assigned the big tipper I was supposed to go to. I explained this to my boss, as well as how ripe for abuse this new rule is. His only response was, "Andy's mistake may have negatively affected you today, but next time it probably won't. This is the only way to solve this type of thing." Again, completely false. We have a history log of what driver took what orders, which I pulled up to show that the boss's decision made Andy take 2 deliveries in a row, which also proved Brian was next in line and not Andy. But the boss just shrugged and said the new rule is a new rule. Final say. Next day, Saturday. I clock into my shift and notice that the dispatch system says that Brian is currently checked out on a delivery. But I see his car parked, so clearly he's already back and forgotten to check in. I assume he's either in the bathroom or around the building smoking like usual, ignoring the other duties we have until a delivery is ready. So the driver order is currently #1 Brian, but he's out, and #2 me. Then a delivery order comes in, a big one for 8 large pizzas. Big orders usually come with a big tip, but it's not a guarantee. I walk over to the boss and say, "Just making sure from now on we go by the dispatch order regardless of what anyone says, yes?" And he confirms, "Yes, stick to the dispatch order." Perfect. Brian comes out of the bathroom a few minutes later, walks over to the dispatch system and realizes he forgot to check in. So he checks in. As a result, his name moves down below mine in the dispatch system, as it thinks he just got back. Normally, as many drivers make this mistake, this wouldn't really affect anything. Brian tells me, "Oh hey, I was here before you. I just forgot to check in." I say, "Oh well, boss says we're going by dispatch order and it says I'm next, so." Brian walks over to the boss and starts explaining the situation. Meanwhile, the big order is slowly coming out of the oven and getting prepped for delivery. Another driver, Ivan, friends with Brian, comes back from his lunch break and clocks back in. Brian calls him over since before Ivan left the building, he witnessed Brian come back from a delivery and go straight to the bathroom before I ever clocked in for my shift. The boss is annoyed, simply reiterating, "We're going by the dispatch order, night fever is next." Brian continues to argue while Ivan comes over to me and says, "Hey man, you know Brian just forgot to check in, and he's actually next, right? You're going to let him take this next delivery. The dispatch order doesn't matter." I tell him, "Sorry, boss said to go by the dispatch order." The big order finishes getting prepped, and I check out the delivery under my name and take it to my car. To my surprise, no one ran out to stop me. I didn't think I'd get away with it. This isn't the first time Brian caused a rule change. Normally, when it comes back to bite him in the ass, it's been long enough that the boss forgets and reverts the rule, causing Brian to always get his way. But I guess since it literally happened yesterday, this time it was clearly fresh on the boss's mind. Plus, I clarified right before this happened. As I'm leaving, Andy drives up to start his shift, and I tell him, "I got his ass, I stole his order, I'll tell you about it later." The big order did indeed have a big tip, $20, the amount Brian caused me to lose yesterday. While I was out, Andy told me that a known non-tipper delivery came in. Under normal circumstances, I would have been assigned this order, but Brian's rule change caused him to be assigned this delivery instead. He threw a temper tantrum, refusing to deliver it until the boss forced him to. When Brian returned, he decided to clock out for the day, working less than an hour. Having one less driver on a busy day is bad. It puts us behind on delivery times, and causes a ripple effect that makes every order during peak time become late and cold. This negatively affects everyone. Drivers get stuck delivering already late orders, which means less or no tips. The store gets low review scores for late delivery times and complaints from customers. Aftermath. For some reason, Saturdays have been relatively slow, so Brian's tantrum didn't affect us. It was actually good, as one less driver meant I got more deliveries. The rule is still in place, unfortunately. It's ripe for abuse, and I'll probably get screwed over by it sooner or later. For example, imagine the 2 Saturday orders were reversed. Brian comes out of the bathroom, checks in, and is placed second. This makes me first in line for the no-tip order. The next one is an entitled people story. My mother died when I was 12. At the moment of her death, our family could have been the stuff of movies. We had not seen our father in a couple of years, and we were well used to a life without any adult input. I had found my mother dead, called the ambulance, and the neighbors all witnessed the spectacle. By afternoon, there were her friends going through her closet. Before illness had stolen it, my mother's true pride was her looks. She was beautiful with stunning red hair. Even after the ravages of her illness, she was very pretty. She had a green silk dress that was a treasure from the times before everything went bad. In that dress, she could still silence a room. I stood at her bedroom door and watched these women try on her clothes. One of them grabbed the emerald dress, and immediately the women started to fight over the prize. They all wanted it. One woman claimed it, but another grabbed it out of her hand and immediately locked it in her car. A tension took over the room. I stood and watched, powerless. The hyenas who did not get the dress started to bargain their pilfered loot to exchange for the dress, but no deals were made. Word of my mom's death must have gotten to the high school, and my older siblings were now walking in the door. My brother was a successful drug dealer who, at 17, ruled our house. We all feared him. Even her friends knew he was dangerous. He had once taken a gun to my mother's head. Seeing him approaching the house, the women stopped what they were doing and we all held our breath. But he did not come inside, so they returned to their looting. In the moment, I totally forgot I was afraid of him. I forgot that I believed he hated us. I forgot the gun. I showed him and my older sister the dress locked in the Vulture's car. Mom's stuff was piled on the seats of various friends' cars, but we all were focused on the dress. I went back in to witness the harvest of our home. On the day of the funeral, my brother was a different kid. He stood tall and brave. He made sure to escort each and every one of those vultures up to see our mother laid out in the coffin, adorned in the green dress. The next one is an entitled parents' story. For about 6 months, my parents have been hanging out with this young woman, Brittany. She's 28, I think, and works as a nurse at the same hospital as my parents. They invite her for dinners and stuff like that. I liked her at first. My mom really likes her and sometimes says I should be more like her. Brittany once offered me pot, and of course I said yes, but then she ratted me out to my mom. Brittany said she saw me smoking it in my room and was worried about me. My mom believed her, of course. That's all to say that I've got a good reason not to like Brittany. My parents started hanging out late with Brittany, and one morning during summer, I saw Brittany leaving my parents' bedroom. My parents had been at work for hours by then, and she looked like she had just gotten up. Then, about 2 months ago, she started staying over often. My parents said she was staying to help them with work. Then one night, I walked into my parents' bedroom, and Brittany was in bed with my dad. I was really upset, but I didn't say anything at first because my dad promised he would explain it. After a week, I snitched on him to Mom. But my mom knew what was going on. She and Dad explained that Brittany was a special friend. She said my dad wasn't cheating because they were sharing Brittany, whatever that means. I was weirded out and just tried to move on. Unfortunately, on Monday, I came home to find Brittany's stuff everywhere. Apparently, Brittany is now going to live with us, supposedly because rent is just too high and they wanted to help her out. Well, it hasn't even been a week, and I'm sick of her being here. I have to share a bathroom with her, and she's super nosy. My friend had come over so he could help me in math. Well, that night, Brittany told my parents that she's concerned about me being alone with a boy in my bedroom. My parents work late, so they never knew he was coming over. But now, thanks to Brittany, we have to stay in the kitchen so she can make sure we don't get up to trouble. My mom doesn't allow me to use tampons, but I'm in cheer and they're a necessity, so my friend gave me some to use whenever. I forgot to leave them in my locker, and I guess Brittany found them in my backpack. When I saw her looking at them, I flipped my lid. I told her she's not my babysitter and that I wanted her to leave me alone. Brittany got super offended and claimed that I was making her feel unwelcome. She threatened to leave, and my parents acted like I was being unreasonable. Like, I get it's their house, but I feel like I should have been at least warned about her coming. Of course, she never left, and she's back to policing my behavior. My mom got the results back from some testing I had done and must have told Brittany. She told me I'm going to have to use boric acid suppositories and that she's going to make sure I keep up with them. I really feel like Brittany being a parent is going too far, and that my parents are crazy to think I should just go along with what they're doing. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.